Satan Jazz.
That and prog.
Satan Jazz.
It's like a mix between
just
Satan Jazz.
heavier.
I think
Right?
jazz was considered devil music back in the day, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
For sure,
yeah.
just doing all this kind of noodling and all
Bad
that kind of
stuff.
shenanigans, all that and shenanigan craziness, right? Like,
Never mix jazz and gin.
That's-
You'll go on massive murder sprees, and yeah, it's all Satan.
oh yeah, after listening to a saxophone solo, man, you don't know what you're
Oh
capable
my
of.
god.
Yeah, jazz and gin.
Welcome to the B-Sides and Beers podcast.
Welcome to B-Sides and Beers, episode 83. Tonight we're talking death metal. I mean, death metal. Death metal.
How's it going, man?
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Great. I got
Excellent.
scrambled eggs for brains. Listen to all this death metal, but good.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Hey, what are we drinking? Let's start right off with that, so we can jump right into the death metal.
What are you pounding there, Dane? What was that big
Oh, it's a
swig?
big swig of Grolsch.
Grosh.
Yeah, I just got a couple cans of Grolsch. Cheap stuff to get me through right now. And
Yeah. That's where-
I also picked up this. This is from Wild Eye Brewing. And just for tonight's podcast, it's Devil's Toasted Nuts. thought,
Toasted.
That-
That's
I know that
nuts.
one. That's a good one.
yeah, I thought this was appropriate. This is a 6.66.
Yes, yeah.
So double nut brown ale. This should be good. I'm excited.
old
And they're out
Double
of
nut.
double nut. Yeah, Wild Eye Brewing out of North Van. So
So nice you had to do it twice.
that's right.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something.
Nice. Is that it? Is that your lineup there?
That's my lineup. Yep.
Yeah, right on.
Easy peasy.
Cool. Mike, what you got?
I have out of what is this? Boulder Dash Brewing. Got a tall boy of their Sneaky Weasel. It's a 5.6.
Oh, is it 30% sneakier?
30%? Now 30%.
Whoa.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that
Yeah,
that's
label
great.
on there.
and not awful for a $2 tall boy.
Mm-mm.
That's
That is
awesome.
good.
$2.
Yeah, Sneaky Weasel's good.
Yeah.
Because I went to the liquor store today and thinking that it would be an awful experience, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to avoid the really crafty stuff this time. And I walked out with 2 cans of tall boys, and it was $5.06.
Fuck yeah, man.
Taxi in for 2.
That's great.
So the second one, the only reason why it came out to the $6 or $5.06 was this one was also on sale, and this is a Innocent Gun Irish whiskey cask. It is a Scottish oatmeal stout.
Oh.
I think it's new because they had these big racks with like beer koozies and sock promotion things, and yeah,
Have not seen
So,
those
yeah,
before. Yeah.
first time I've seen it
I
too.
didn't know they made a
So-
stout. That's cool.
Yep.
And the Innocent
Yeah,
Gun
that's
was
what I got.
reasonably priced? Because that's usually outrageous.
This was like $2.30.
Yeah,
Didn't
that's-
come in a box.
Not in a box, no fancy boxes, no
There you
none
go.
of that.
Needs
No,
that box
that's why.
anyway.
That's fair.
Nobody. That's who. Nobody.
I got a. I've had this one before, but I'm doing it again. The Bomber, the Skyline Lager.
Nice.
Good one.
Skyline Lager. And this one was like, see, it's funny. We're going. We changed now. We used to do alcohol volume, and now we talk about price on the beer. It's like mine was like 10%, man. No. Mine. This was like $2.50. This is $2.50.
Yeah, who
Pretty
can find
good.
the
Pretty good,
cheapest?
right? Not
Yeah.
bad. Then I got the Hoyne Brewing, the Czech Half Dark Lager.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Nice.
The
And that's
Schweck.
a 4.9, so on the lighter side. And then I'm already halfway through this, the Golden Hour Cranberry Ale from Red Truck.
Love it. I
Another
love that one.
cranberry ale, beauty.
This is so good. It's
Yeah.
tasty. Dirt. I learned about the the difference between like the screaming and like the vocal fry. I did some research on that. I did some deep dive on that as
Oh,
to
yeah.
like what it actually is.
Yeah.
And then I came across a crazy dude who has like the lowest note like recorded in the Guinness Book of World Record of History, and it's like you should see it on the staff. Like you should see it. It's like 60 steps below, like on the bass clef. That this guy can hit this note. It's just like,
That's
anyways,
awesome.
It's
I
just
kind
like
of
a
did a deep
fishing
dive.
line.
Yeah, it's
Just
just like
jigging that
way
bass
down. Yeah. So, anyways, you went off on that kind of tangent for a bit for me too. But wow,
Yeah.
like it, I had a lot to learn.
Me too.
I realized, yeah.
Me too.
Like, and the subgenres that like are there, and just going through it all, I was floored. I mean, I knew they were there, but like I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know what blackened metal was, or
Right.
just a whole bunch of these different ones that were cool to jump into.
Totally. Well, what was your first, I guess, taste of
Oh, I
death metal?
like at the beginning, like during
Like,
this dive.
in general, the first time you really heard, is it new to you?
No,
I mean, I know it's new to you, but is it new to you?
No, like I remember like working in the record store, and like the Cannibal Corpse album came in, and it had like the sticker over the CD, and I was like,
Yep.
"What? This is super dangerous, right? Like this has got to
Yep.
be bad." And of course, it didn't take long for somebody to rip back that sticker just for a peek, right? Just to see what it is, but. That
The
was kind of
Zombie
like,
Mountain
yeah,
Down.
and that was the very first album that I bought, and that as far as a death metal album, and that's pretty much the only one that I bought. So, and it's only because of the sticker, but that's kind of my first foray into that whole thing. But after that, like I said, I had so much to learn when I started diving into this that it was just like I felt like I didn't know anything. And I still feel like I don't know very much,
Totally
but I know a
agree.
little bit more.
Yeah, totally agree.
It does
And
look
I thought I was somewhat like seasoned in the heavy metal or the heavy music sort of area, but a lot of the stuff that I thought was heavy or death metal wasn't, and then you talk about sort of the subgenres and the overlap and stuff like that, but like I think my first kind of introduction to death metal was Sepultura, and a lot of people would be like, nah, not really death metal, but early day.
it
Whoa.
counts.
Ooh, that's scary. So Flip's background just went totally black.
Well, you know what it is? The girls are sleeping in the garage tonight because I'm doing a podcast, and the hue lights are connected out there too, so they're probably going to bed.
Yeah.
And I'm in here doing that thing. So you guys keep going. I'm going to figure this out right now. There's one. There's one.
But
Perfect.
Yeah, so-
perfect timing.
it was Sepultura for me, and so that was more, I think, a really good transition from thrash into death metal.
Yep.
And I didn't really know too much about it, and I think I had the idea of doing this podcast because I was listening to a lot of Death as of recently, so the band Death.
Yep.
And I thought it was just really interesting with and I should have written his name down here in my notes, but the godfather of death metal, Chuck.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Schuldiner.
exactly. And how he actually succumbed to brain cancer, or it was actually pneumonia, I think, in the end at a very young age. And I was just like, wow. So like one of the pioneers of this genre, as he was writing this music and performing it, he was facing his own death. And I just thought this was something really interesting. And
And you know what, man? I to be honest, like, and as a guy who's doing new research on this band and this guy,
yeah,
I naively, you automatically are like, well, okay, like how many drugs did this guy do? And
Yeah.
like you start scrolling down, and then you like feel bad when you get to it, and you're like, oh, like okay, but it's just like it's the automatic first thought, and it's just
Yeah.
it's weird, right? Like, anyways, yeah,
I think the genre itself, just the name death metal, it has negative connotations. But when you really listen to like a variety of bands, and you begin to understand the complexity in the songwriting, and I think that's the allure. I mean, if you may not love it, and you may not listen to a whole pile of it, but like if you play the drums or the guitar or anything like that, you will really respect the fact that this is complex music that is being executed.
yeah.
Yep.
You have to
Everybody
you have
just
to show it its
focuses on
respect, even if you don't like what it is.
Yeah.
It's like Rush, right? You may hate the you may hate the singing, but you can't deny the music, right? You
just like Rush.
Yeah.
can't deny the arrangements and everything else. You can't deny the lyrics either. So,
Yep.
but I mean, metal as a genre really is ridiculously young when you think about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for the amount of incarnations and different things that have an evolution, so many evolutions have happened in this genre in such a short period of time. I think of maybe hip hop as such a young kind of genre too,
Right.
and lots of different evolutions in that too. But metal, wow, like I don't think you can divvy it up any further in any other genre, to my knowledge, right? And it's young, it hasn't been around for very long.
Absolutely.
It just keeps splintering and splintering and splintering into these very niche subgenres that are in of themselves unique and interesting. And if you're not a metal fan, just listening, okay, well, it all sounds the same because it all has this guttural growling, or why is this guy screaming, or why are the drums so fast, or what, like they just don't get it. But like it's so complex that there's so many different flavors. I mean, I started listening to Cannibal Corpse and Sepultura and maybe a bit of Morbid Angel and stuff back in 95.
Yeah.
High school, my buddy Levers be in the hallways playing hacky sack, cranking this stuff, and we have our ghetto blasters stashed in the locker, and every lunch and every break it was just pull this shit out, plug it in, and crank it up, right? So I mean, I've been into it ever since, and I can't get enough of it.
What's the allure for you?
It's the energy, it's the feeling, it's the it takes over every part, or it can be just in the background,
right?
Where it has so many levels where I can be completely focused on it and thrashing and feeling that energy, and at other times it can just be in the background. And I mean, even back then I was able to in high school, falling asleep to music, you'd leave your stereo on or whatever, and it was it was Cannibal Corpse, or it was Slipknot, or it was like I just fell asleep to it and it was fine.
That's crazy, man. I was good.
So,
That's such a good episode. Like, what songs do you fall
Totally.
asleep to, or which ones have you? But
fucking
that's
Iowa
crazy.
for 2 years. What did you listen to for 2 years?
Yeah,
Love it.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Iowa, self-titled. Nuts.
Yeah.
Still amazing.
Well, hey, whatever works, whatever puts you to sleep, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah, man.
Yep. It's like a buzzsaw to some people, and it's just perfect for me.
Yeah. So when did you guys find out about Death then? Like the band Death?
It would have been around then. It would probably, mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
96 to 99.
The logo's super iconic, right?
Oh,
like
totally.
That's sort of. I think I saw the logo before I even heard the band, but I always like recognized that band name.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And did you listen Did you have any albums back then?
Not me.
Just
T, did you?
cassette, not full albums, I've got cassettes. Levers had some CDs and stuff, and we just kind of made things and did that. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, back in high school, who's got money to buy that shit too, right? So,
That was the other thing too, right? Like I remember, I think my cousin had a Deicide, that one album with
Yep.
the I'm assuming it's Jesus with like the white cloth over, and you can see the bleed through.
yep, yep.
Um, and I remember listening to it and just being like, "This is so evil, and I will probably be possessed if I
Mhm.
listen to it too much." And you're what, like 10, 11 years old, like when this stuff was just being released, right? Like Deicide was the evil band. Glenn, what's his face, had a upside down cross burnt on his head.
On
Like,
his
holy
forehead.
crap. Like
Yep.
when you're 11 years old,
Yep.
that is terrifying. But at the same
Yep.
time, you want to know more. You want to know why they're playing so fast. Why are they so angry? Is this stuff for real? Are they really like worshiping Satan, or is it just like another like Kiss band? But
Yep.
I mean, I was into Sepultura, and I think for me it was really the they were sort of more of like a groove kind of hard thrash metal band, which I really liked.
Totally.
But again, like the blast beats, like I had never heard anything like that before. And so yeah, for me it was definitely Deicide. I've heard bits and pieces of them. I was sort of interested in them. Morbid Angel, I think I kind of like, an Obituary I've heard before and I was interested, but I never wanted to invest $20 on a CD. It was just something I couldn't, I just didn't want to take that chance for whatever reason. But
Totally. And back then you didn't have an option really to listen to it
yeah,
all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, there was some music stores where you could ask them to put it on and have a really quick listen, but for the most part you had to go with what you saw in a magazine or what a friend told
Yeah.
you.
And even that was
it's
super
it's not
rare,
like the
right?
internet where you can type it up and or what's playing on MTV or Much Music, or where are you finding this band name that's from New York, Buffalo, or
Fucking
from Tampa, or
Florida.
from San Francisco?
And that's
Fucking Florida, man.
Why did it all happen in Florida? Like, what? It's funny how that all kind of works. Hey, like you get
Right.
Just
different
the perfect
scenes
storm,
in those
man.
different areas, and like it's crazy.
It's just hot.
Yeah.
People are poor. It's just you know what? Like it's not a contrived scene. Like
Yeah.
LA, I'm not saying LA is contrived, but like you know what I mean? Like you would
It's a
expect,
different vibe. Yeah.
right? And like
Yeah.
you take a look at metal from like 1970 to 2000, 30 years, a lot happened. But a lot of it was LA, New York, but Florida was just stinking hot. And like, I think
Yeah.
like a perfect place for something just like,
Teeman.
yeah,
Just teeming.
yeah.
Well, you can even rewind back to I don't know, 81, 82. You've got influences that weren't death metal, but you could tell where it came, where the seeds were planted with Venom and Celtic Frost and stuff like
Right.
that. Overseas, and you look at a lot of the death metal, early death metal grindcore like Napalm Death or Carcass, that it started off in the UK, and that sound trickled over to the States and ended up in Tampa and in San Francisco, Long Island. Well, that was a little bit later, but I mean, when you've got what was it? Possessed. You got Possessed in '85 for the Seven Churches, and then you've got Death coming out in '87. So I mean, those are arguably the two very first true death metal bands, and then everything just kind of went from that. When you look at the New York scene, took from what Tampa was doing, and you look at all these amazing players that were, it was like the 60s going to San Francisco, but it was the same thing for metal, extreme metal going down to Tampa.
Yeah.
That was just the hub.
Who's the first then? Who's the first? Because I there were so many different websites with so many different claims of, a lot of them said Possessed, a lot of them said, there was a whole bunch of different ideas actually, but Who's the first?
It all depends on how far back you want to go. If you want to count it as first to release a full album,
Right.
or first to start dropping EPs,
Right.
demos, and stuff. But I mean, it flips back and forth between Possessed and Death.
Possessed had that
Yeah.
EP, and that was
In my opinion.
85, right?
Yeah.
And then Death released. They had a bunch of EPs before. What was it?
Yeah.
Something
I
Gore.
think it was 85 and 87 technically for main full albums.
Yeah.
But
But I think as far as like the one that carried the flag, as far as we are the ones that are death metal, I think it was Death.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's so tricky. Like when you go back to like 85, 87, it all just sounds like thrash to me. And I guess you sort of like, I mean, like even Slayer had those satanic and dark overtones. They were doing the Halloween thing too. So it's really hard to see that distinction. It's sort of like a
Well, the big distinction though was the vocals,
right.
and
Yeah.
the big thing was the
And the tuning.
even with Slayer, and the tuning. I mean, quite often it was a lower tuning, but the big thing with singing, when you go from Slayer, that's this satanic band but with these really high pitch vocals, and then you take what Slayer did musically, and you add the guttural, deep, unrecognizable. Like you can't, unless you really sit and listen, and unless you go back to when we were kids and you would buy the cassette or you would get the CD and you would read the lyrics, you had no idea what they were
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. But this is
So,
this
and
is the thing.
that's
Okay,
the
so
biggest
Death
thing.
didn't have that low guttural growl.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's why when you talk to any like purist thrash metal, it's all in E.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So the difference was death metal had dropped down to, I would imagine, B, or I'm not exactly sure, but it was a
could be
lower
anything.
tuning.
I mean,
And then that's
yeah,
where the lower sort of
probably C
guttural
in general. Yeah.
sounds like the singing came from.
Yeah.
But
then you also look at the cats like Napalm Death, where they would go and they would have like this 4-second song.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's our song. Done.
Yeah. Awesome.
What was that? That was awesome. That's what that was. But I mean, not for everyday consumption for most. So.
All right, boys, it's time for a hot fact. You didn't think there'd be a hot fact in death metal, but I found one, and maybe
There
this is
better be
something
hot
you guys
facts.
knew, and you're gonna be like, "Yeah, I knew that already." Like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It's not that.
But I did not know that Larry Lalonde from Primus was in
Yep.
Possessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea, man, that he was in there.
So
yeah, that kind of blew my mind, and it also blew my mind that he was on Mule Variations. Tom Waits.
Oh,
was on
really?
there too.
That one
Love
I
it.
didn't know. That
Love
one
it.
I knew
didn't
that
know.
Les Claypool was on there, but I didn't know he was on there. So, but it makes sense. But anyways, I did not know he was in Possessed and played on Seven Churches too.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
I did. I read it somewhere. But thank you for reiterating. That was great.
God,
It was
It's
still a
still
hot fact
pretty hot.
for everyone else.
it's a hot fact for somebody out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
It might not be for you, but it might be for somebody.
Well, here's what I got one for
Yeah.
you. I don't have any names, so maybe
Oh, a hot fact?
maybe not much of a fact, but it's like, hey, did you know?
Oh, hey, did you know? I like this.
Oh, now I gotta
a new
make it- I gotta
segment.
make
A new
another one.
segment.
Hey, did you
Hey,
know?
did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Morbid Angel. No, sorry, it was Obituary. The drummer from Obituary also played for NGWK.
I heard something about that, but I've never followed Andrew WK, so
Yeah.
I didn't. But
Yeah.
that's cool.
Is that guy still making music?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I
Shoot.
haven't heard from him in a long time.
Yeah, Wikipedia'd his name a couple months ago when I was just kind of looking into early 2000 stuff, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Last thing I saw from him was early 2000s, and it was him in a guitar magazine with a guitar that was shaped like a giant piece of cheese or pizza
Right,
or
yeah.
something, and he was just sweating on everything, and it's like, yeah, okay.
I saw his SNL performance not that long ago. I'm not sure how I came across that. Looking through something else must have been, but that was fantastic. I don't know what year that was from, but like,
Hell of a performer.
yeah, his band was great too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking up,
Yeah. Really interesting. Anyway, so like drummers, and I think this is where my black hole, this is where I tripped into a black hole, was the drumming for this stuff because um you sent that interesting YouTube video with what's his face, Finn McKenty.
Finn McKenty, yeah, he's got some really cool
Holy
stuff.
cow!
Man.
I within the first 5 minutes, I turned him off. I couldn't stand him. I jumped
Yeah.
back in. I mean, he's very opinionated, and anyway,
Yeah,
um,
but
it-
it's condensed knowledge. It's he does this really research and he puts it into this very super fast condensed format, and then you suck in what you can.
right,
So,
right. I wasn't a
yeah,
big
sorry.
fan of his like, oh, you all hipsters. If you would have been listening to like Obituary 20 years ago, you guys are a bunch of
Yeah.
losers. I was just like, oh, whatever, man. Like, we all find the music in our own time. Like, what makes you so special? But anyway,
Well, he's playing at the scenes that do the same thing back to the originals, and like it's a constant scene fight, and it always has
Yeah.
been between the new kids that that have their metal core and thinking that it's more brutal than death metal, and it's just anyway.
right.
I think he was being silly about it, but
Yeah.
anyway.
And
sorry.
it's interesting that like the way that he sort of kind of like hopscotches around like all these different sort of genres and who is entitled to what and who is like a poser and whatever. But anyway, it
Yep.
turned out to be a pretty like informative. It was about 40 minutes worth on like
Yep.
a very general overview on death metal. But he had this one section on a band called Origin, which I really liked. And he was focusing on the drummer. His name was John, or is John Longstreth, I think.
Okay.
Very elbows to the body, fingers
Oh, yeah.
drumming, almost kind of like,
Yep.
I don't know what you would call that, jazz drumming, but
No, it's that's how you get the speed, is just having that, because basically you're holding a stick and you're just flicking your
incredible,
It's unreal.
incredibly
Yeah.
fast, amazing. And
Yep.
like he was talking about this dude does blast beats, but he has like actual like his blast beats have he can do like a fast hard or a fast soft, and
Yep.
he incorporates all these
Yep.
different sort of elements within his drumming,
Textures.
dynamics and things like that. Like, and then he showed a video, and
Mhm.
it's absolutely amazing to see this guy play. He's barely moving at all, just his hands.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the blast, that stuff is crazy, and like the whole thing is to be able to do as little as possible, and that's exactly what that is, right? To be able
Right.
to be as efficient as possible, so that you can do that on a nightly basis for 3 hours, right?
No
like every
doubt.
single time.
Yep.
The economics and
But-
efficiency. Yeah.
You're totally right. Like, or else you're just gonna burn out, and that's never gonna happen. Just like the vocals, right? Like, you have to figure out how
Yep.
to do that properly, or you're never gonna be able to produce that on a nightly basis, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe one
Yeah.
time for a recording, and then you're done. But but those guys are unbelievable. Like the blast beat stuff. Any guy that can do blast beats, but like when you see other guys that kind of are on another level too on some of that stuff,
Yep.
it stands
Yep.
out, right? But
You need
It's-
to Google gravity blasts.
yeah, like it's just
Mind melting.
it's a totally different universe almost,
Yeah.
right? To go in there, right? Like it's just but that kind of style of drumming, Mike's right, like just to be able to stay tight to the drum like that and to be able to be that quick on with your fingers, that's I don't know how else you would do it without doing it something like that, right? Like your wrist
Yep.
would be dead.
Death wrists.
Yep. That's about it.
But
That's-
super impressive. I mean, like super,
Totally.
super technical. And, it's funny because he was also kind of going through some of these, the kind of like more contemporary death metal bands. some of them had like 12 views on YouTube, right? Like not a lot, but it's just it's interesting to sort of contrast the the sound or the audio effect that you get from it compared to like what everyone is doing. And
Yeah.
this Finn McKenty guy was talking about like, oh, here's a solid state tone. He's probably using a metal zone, and it sounds like
Mhm.
shit, but it sounds like, something you would see on a skate video, or it just like it's got that
Yep.
flat wall of sound that fucking hits you, and then just a snare drum that is just popping your brain. It's something
Yep.
like, yeah, another universe, like
Well,
you
that's that
described it.
that's more along the lines though of like black metal, Norwegian black metal, or the the Scandinavian
Right.
scene, where when you looked at when it first started, the first influences from the UK were kind of fast, heavier classic rock, or not classic rock, but like early metal, like
Judas
the
Priest.
new wave of British. The new wave of British metal. So they took that and they made it heavier and they added more Satan to it. And then when you get to the Tampa Bay scene, where okay, so now they're adding a lot more technical prowess
Right.
to it, and the recordings are getting cleaner and tighter and more precise, and less washy, less of the shh kind of a washy
Yeah.
sound. And then it gets to the point where there's it gets too polished after a while, so now it becomes stale. And then you get the early black metal bands that stripped it right down to nothing, where it was all you can hear is the heavy metal pedal, chainsaw, guitar, solid state amps, shitty 4-track recording, and it landed it lent itself to that feel and emotion and image that they were putting out.
Absolutely. It's just like,
Yeah.
they've got the inverted crosses for the whatever.
Yeah.
And this is also like the sound, the music that they're actually recording is sort of like a backlash to whatever is popular on the radio and on
Mm-hmm.
MTV. This is something that, when you hear it, you're in a different place, or you're amongst different
Totally.
people, which is really interesting
Totally.
to me.
Yeah. And when they you go from the satanistic side of it in the lyrics to bands like Cannibal Corpse that turned it into more of like a B
Right.
horror movie
Yeah.
lyrics, where it's just slaughter, decapitation, every kind of debaucherous, torturous, whatever. I mean, it's like something out of Hellraiser, right?
Just
And yeah, I mean, Hammer Smash Face and a bunch of other ones that I won't mention on here because I don't want YouTube to say no, you can't have that. But the list is long, and it was very interesting how they took it from anytime the genre plateaued, there was another scene that took it up another
Right.
notch, and then another notch. So
And that's why it's still relevant now.
totally,
Right? Like,
totally.
there's a reason, like, they have that Armstrong Metal Fest, right? That
Yep.
they hold every year. And, like, it, it was its first year back since COVID, and
Yeah.
unbelievable, right? Like, there was a ton
Well,
of people there, a ton of people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in a small town like that, to be able to have bands that, like, aren't that big,
Hmm.
it's still alive, right? And it still has a
Totally.
scene even in a small town, right?
Yeah.
So
And most of that's black metal and death metal and tech death,
Yeah.
which are not strong industry genres, but they build their whole weekend festival around those things, and there's always a sold out turnout.
Yeah.
So it's pretty rad.
just circling back to like, I learned a lot on this project. I had listened to more black metal than I had death metal,
Mhm.
and I kind of got those genres a bit confused. And now, like,
Right.
I understand the differences.
Mhm.
What's tech death with the
So tech death,
Is that like
it's
Static
overly
X?
no tech death. Tech death is like Archspire.
Oh,
So I found out about tech death in 2011 when I went to a metal show and checked out a band that I had never heard of prior. They're very new. At the time they were very new, and they had went to Kelowna on one of their first tours anyway, their first tour for their first real full album, and it was Archspire. And these guys are from Vancouver, and it is nuts. Like so it has the death metal vocals and it has the death metal drums, but the guitars are even more technical than anything previous. A lot of it's 7-string, a lot of it's 8-string
lots
guitars.
of tapping.
Like it's just like it's like super math death metal.
Oh.
It's unreal. Super math death metal. I mean, when you've got the two guitar players playing 8-string guitars and a bass player, and they're all ripping,
Right?
and but it's all articulate is the big thing. I mean, you can have these cats that are just banging it out and making noise, but to have everything super accurate and precise, and you can hear every note.
It's like jazz, man.
So,
It's
Yeah,
in the end,
Yep.
it's basically jazz.
yeah.
Satan jazz.
That and prog. I
Satan
mean,
jazz.
it's like a mix between
Yeah,
yeah,
just-
Satan jazz.
Heavier.
I think
Right?
jazz was considered devil music back in the day, wasn't it?
It certainly was
For sure.
yeah.
Just doing all this kind of noodling and all
Bad
that kind of
stuff.
shenanigans, all that and shenanigan craziness, right? Like
never mix jazz and gin.
That's-
You'll go on massive murder sprees, and yeah, it's all Satan.
Oh yeah,
So,
after listening to a saxophone solo, man, you don't know what you're
Oh my
capable of.
god.
yeah, jazz and gin.
Gotcha. Tech death. I like it. Can you suggest like
Yeah,
like Meshuggah? That's the first band that comes to my mind.
Meshuggah's more gent.
Yeah.
So they have the really technical stuff with Meshuggah is the drums
Right.
and the guitar solos. The rest of it is just very mathematically patterned 8-string, 7-string rhythms.
That sounds like tech death
So
to
that's
me.
it's different.
It's
You
different.
will hear it. Do a search for Archspire, put it on your list, listen to it, and you'll tell me the difference right away.
Did you guys try and find a map of metal? Like, what's that dude's name?
Oh, I've been
It's
digging
like the
for
history
years.
of
Oh, yeah, that
metal,
was,
whatever. And he had like
yeah,
that
it's,
documentary and the
yep.
map, like the flow chart.
Yeah, that whole series is awesome. What the hell was it called?
He's a Canadian,
it's like
actually.
History
He's
of
got
Metal.
like
yeah,
Oh really? I've
From
seen that guy.
Toronto.
Yeah.
yeah, he's an anthropologist. Shoot, what's his name? He's on Banger TV.
yeah. I think he started Banger
Yeah,
TV.
probably.
Yeah, he did.
He's got a couple good
Um,
documentaries, and I remember in one of them, it was like this
The whole series is
flow
brilliant.
chart of metal.
Mhm.
Yep. I'll find it here. Anyway, it's oh yeah, Metal Evolution is the
Okay.
series. It's called Metal Evolution, and he's got a 10-part series that he put out maybe 7 years ago,
Okay, nice.
and it goes in depth, and each one goes from the beginning, from when he started and how his search for heavier music kept progressing and evolving and progressing and evolving, and yeah, it's unreal. It's a major good watch. So totally. Metal Evolution.
I'm listening to Archspire right now.
Yep.
In my ears. It's
So good.
crazy, man.
And live is unreal. Live is just, it's next level. And it's funny too, because when you hear this music and then you see them live, where the guitar, one of the guitar players or the singer, it's comical. Like he's a silly character, for shits and giggles. He's just a funny dude, and in between there was one video that I saw where halfway through their show, he kind of, how the vocalist will spread the crowd to do, okay, now we're going to do a big slam pit. And then he gets someone to bring out a twister mat. So now it's Tech Death Twister.
Wow.
It's awesome. It's just brilliant, man.
Yeah, this is crazy. The drums are just assaulting
Yep.
my ears right now. It's just like,
Yep.
wow.
Yep.
I don't even know how that's possible to play that fast.
Yep.
Wow.
Tight.
Drone Corpse Aviators is the song I'm listening to, and it's just
Okay.
that's
It's so good, man.
brutal.
It's so good.
Just brutal. Yeah. You said
But I mean,
gent before. What's gent?
so gent is another subgenre where I guess the main part of it, the main name comes from the guitar structure where it's like a jet, lot of gates, like really gated sounds where you hit and the palm mutes are silent right after.
Like Meshuggah.
So you look at bands like Meshuggah or Periphery.
Oh,
Those are the two
Periphery.
big ones.
Yeah.
And then everybody else kind of went from that, but it's the very kind of sound.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that came from. But
Shoot, man, there's so many.
it's
Yeah,
deep,
so
dude.
much.
It's deep. It's so deep, and it's kind of funny too. Cycling back to how death metal became a household name temporarily.
Cannibal Corpse,
Where
dude.
you got Cannibal Corpse is
Yeah.
is the big thing. I mean, when you look at Bob Dole, trying to he's naming them specifically in his list of 3. That he's trying to shame these cats. That it's like, oh, you're doing these horrible things, and the guys in the bands are like, oh, we love this. We don't feel shame for it. This is awesome. Thanks for the
Yeah,
advertising, kind of thing. Thanks for the free advertising. I mean, it was, what was his list? It was Cannibal Corpse, Ghetto Boys, and there was one other one I can't think of, but
Madonna.
maybe Madonna. I don't know. But I mean, when you've got Bob Dole back then in the early '90s mentioning Cannibal Corpse on a massive, the whole world's
Hell yeah,
watching.
and they're on Ace
on
Ventura.
and,
Jim
yeah, and Ace
Carrey is like
Ventura.
on stage with them
Yep,
on the big
Yep.
screen.
Oh, I forgot about that.
massive.
Oh yeah, man.
Massive.
That was the
Yeah.
pinnacle of death metal right there. Everyone was like,
Yeah,
whoa.
Yeah. It's mainstream.
And then
now.
Oprah had like a special on like how bad death metal was, and then it tailed off.
yep. Most of those, talk shows, morning talk shows and evening talk shows had them on there. And
You
it
was
was,
corrupted.
You are not the father.
yeah. Yes.
I told you. I told you.
I told you. And then the chairs go flying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, this was an awesome deep dive, man, and this is I'm glad you brought it up. It's something that's always been on some sort of a rotation for me, but it's nice doing this extra deep dive and being able to actually, dig into it and just talk about this with someone else that
Right?
wants to
You
experience.
can't talk
right?
about it with
That
no one
wants
else. man.
to.
Shit,
Nobody.
I had Bolt Thrower playing in the car on my way fucking home
Yes.
from Costco.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that's thanks to you. That's thanks to you, man.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, you got to do the Bolt Thrower. You got to do Carcass.
Right.
They've been around forever, but that's another band that went from the death metal, from the thrash to the death metal, and then evolved into this mass spectrum of next level metal. So, like, just taking it to these next plateaus. So
And that's kind of what even like the band Death, going back to that, to kind of
Totally.
circle back to that, is like they evolved as the band went on as well, right? And got way more proggy as it kind of went later
true.
in the years, right? So it evolved even within that kind of genre within a genre, man. Like, you
Yep.
know. So,
Yep.
I mean, they
but
are
yeah, no,
all of them. When you really listen to it, they are leaning very close to proggy territory.
totally.
I mean, these are 5 to 9 minute songs, 7 to 10 different you know,
movements like and
movements,
arrangements and
different
yeah,
time
like
signatures. Like it is very proggy, and but like
yeah,
not considered as
no,
that,
It's just
you know?
technical. I mean, you can only take it so
Yeah,
far where, you have X amount of bands playing the exact same song. Okay, now I'm bored. Let's take it up a notch because we're all amazing musicians. We're all extremely technically proficient. So why not try something else and experiment something and broaden your horizons, right?
absolutely. And you know what? You know, I feel like I have to bring this up because when we were doing this project, like I was doing some research as far as like the 90s and like why did this happen? There was hair metal. You
Mm-hmm.
know, going a little bit forward, there was some, hair metal turned into grunge, but now we're sort of experiencing this whole sort of, I don't want to say AI, but there's definitely like
Mm-hmm. It's coming.
templates. There's
Yep.
a lot of things that, you know, people are doing to make massive global hits. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very formulated and very predictable and very boring. And I'm just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what's the next thing to come out of it. Like, I'm not necessarily focusing on death metal, but like, what else is there that's going to sort of like spring out of this like stream of predictability?
You never know. I mean, there's so many influences when you go back to grunge, where it's basically just kids locked up in their basements in this shitty winter for months on end, listening to everything from Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin to Jimi Hendrix to jazz to blues to funk to all they have is whatever records they could find. So what comes out of that? You've got the whole Seattle, quote unquote grunge sound, where it's just they take all these bits and pieces from everything and it melds together. So who knows what the next generations are going to put together and meld together and put out. So
the flip side to
I
that
don't think it's
too
always going
is
to be
maybe
AI.
when you said that coming out of that predictability, maybe we know exactly what's going to come out of that because that's what it is predictable, right? Like we know that it's
Mhm.
going to just produce more money making hits. And whatever that is going to be, they're going to find out what the flavor is of the month, right? And
Mhm.
it'll
Yeah,
know exactly what to pick, and it'll know exactly what to create. And you want to create a summertime hit for 2027, here it is, like in two
The new Katy
seconds.
Perry.
Right? Like
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the
maybe it'd
thing.
be like that, who knows.
Yeah, it would be nice if it was something that would have a little bit of longevity to it. I mean, I find it really interesting when you take a look at what's been happening with this crossover from like trap and country. It's a
Yeah.
great mix. And when you sort of look back, when you trace it all back, it all goes to like rhythm and blues, and
Hmm.
it makes sense. But is that something which is going to stay? Like, I'm interested in like
No.
what's something that's going to be like really innovative and different, and that's going to have,
There,
it's going to last.
there's always going to be innovation because there's always going to be groups of people that want something different and that are bored of the programmed mess. So it's going to be there, but it's never going to be lifelong genres like we had and like our parents had, where you had radio specifically that pushed this genre. You had your music television that pushed these things. You had bands that were like Nirvana is probably one of the last bands that is a global powerhouse in rock. Now it's sure there's great bands, but not everybody knows it, and there's just too many choices. So you're never going to get that many people under the same the on the same page again, just because there's too many choices.
Interesting.
Unless digital streaming dies and everybody goes back to vinyl, that's the only way it's going to happen. So
So you think metal's just going to like subclassify into like,
it'll constantly evolve. It'll never be as big as it was in the 80s, but it'll keep growing. It just grows. It's a monster that people need. It'll just keep evolving into something else. So
And I think because of all those subgenres, again, I think it's shown that it can survive, right? It can evolve, and when things get stagnant or things get stale, it comes out with something completely different. You're like, oh, okay, that's new, and somebody likes that, and there's more to that. But in answer to your question, Dane, I don't know. Like it's a little bit terrifying and a little bit exciting at the same time, because it makes you think that possibly like a new genre completely could like come out of something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and not just a subgenre, like something completely different
Right.
that we don't even know about, right? Like the next rock and roll or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, maybe it's something we can't even think of yet. I don't even know.
mhm.
It's a shitty answer, but it's a cop out, sit on the fence answer. But
Or you can just listen
That's-
to like Lithia.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did find a really good band a couple of years back that is a mix between trap, death metal, old school solid punk. They were called Horror.
Okay.
HO9909 is how it's spelled, and it's three dudes in a group, and the energy is unreal. It's very much like old Nine Inch Nails energy, old Prodigy energy, stripped down, old school hardcore punk. It's just, and each song it just flips and flops between all of them. It's unreal. Like, it goes from noise to it's all over the place, but it's brilliant. I can't get enough of it. So
that's that
That's,
United States of Horror album, that yellow one.
they're all good.
That's
They're all good. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, with the
Yeah, but they're all good. They're all good. And actually they were on Prodigy's last album on one song.
yeah, they were.
And that was
Yes,
that.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that was where I first found them. And then as soon as I heard that track, I had to do some.
Oh, that's where you've going
major
back,
digging.
back on it. Oh, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, so
Yeah, I forgot about this album too.
Mhm.
I listened to it. Yeah, no, it was good topic, Dane. Good pick.
thanks for bringing it up, dude.
It was good to jump into this because, like I said, I had a lot to learn and still obviously don't know anything, but it helped me kind of jump into a few other bands and a few other things that I had never heard of before. So that's what the beauty of this podcast.
Always learning.
Yeah, totally.
All right. We want you guys to subscribe, share, and review this podcast. Keep it going. Keep it strong, because we're having a great time entertaining you guys with B-Sides and Beers podcast.